everyone, or good afternoon, good morning, depending on when you're watching, if you're catching it on a replay. It is your girl here again, Marcy Thomas, for another great conversation that we're going to have about one of the most powerful books that I've read this year thus far. So come on in the room, let us know that you're here, and we're going to get started for you in just a moment. So if you haven't been here in this space before, this is the BGC Book Club, which has been around since actually this month is our anniversary month. Three years ago during the pandemic, actually started with a couple of poets, since it is Poetry Month, and have been doing this ever since, going from once a month to a couple times a month to now every week coming to you with wonderful books that are featuring stories that are by, for, and about us. And tonight is no different. So I am coming to you from the outskirts of ATL, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So if there are any Georgia Peaches in here or Ohio Buckeyes, please shout it out so I can know who all is here, or wherever you are from, anywhere in between. So tonight, as I mentioned, I'm super excited about this book. It's really good. I devoured the book in a day. I did not tell Diane that, but I did devour it within the space of a day because I just couldn't put it down. Black Candle Women. Check out that cover. Isn't that beautiful? The cover really draws you, but once you get into the story, it draws you in even more. So by means of introduction, Diane Marie Brown is a professor at Orange Coast College and a public health professional for the Long Beach Health Department. She has a BA and an MPH from UCLA and a degree in fiction from USC's Master of Professional Writing program. She grew up in Stockton, California, and now lives in Long Beach with her husband, her 4 daughters, their dog Brownie, who I saw a couple minutes ago, and Black Candle Women is her first novel. So welcome to the space, Diane.
Hello. Hi, Marcy. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Oh, I see somebody, Terry Simmons from Southfield, Michigan. I actually lived in Southfield for about 10 years. So small world. Nice to see you. Midwest in the house. And we have Nonia from Cecil County, Maryland. So welcome. So first of all, I just want to congratulate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, on the success of your book. This is your first novel, and one would never know that from reading it. But, it was picked up as a Read with Jenna selection, and there's something else going on with the book that we could talk about a little later as well. So how does it feel?
It feels really great. March was a very busy month, a lot going on, and I didn't really process everything for the longest time. So it felt very surreal, but now I'm kind of sinking in and really taking a look back and really appreciating everything. And this is my first published book, but I've written a couple of other books that didn't really go anywhere. So that I feel like that makes it feel really, really surreal because, there's a long time I just kind of didn't think I'd ever get something published. So I still think I feel a little bit of that, like maybe a little imposter syndrome and just, I don't know. It still doesn't feel quite real, but I'm very, very happy.
And we're happy that you stuck to it. That's a testament in and of itself that you knew that you had something within you that is, that was powerful and that you wanted to get it out. So for anybody else out there writing, a budding writer or a musician, or, me, I'm a budding television star, whatever it is, don't give up. It's never too late. And to just keep putting in the work, and eventually things will come to pass.
Definitely. I've dreamed of being a writer for a long time, and just when you're passionate about something, maybe you get to the point where you feel like you want to give up, but it's inside of you and you just can't let it go. So I think a lot of creative people, a lot of us, that's, as it sounds like you all know, we just have that burning in us that keeps us going.
Yes. So, well, before we get into the book, just what is it that drew you to wanting to write and tell stories? Especially now I know that this isn't your first time.
Yes.
What is it that drew you to the whole thing of wanting to write? Was it something that maybe happened in childhood, or what drew you to the written word?
Yes, I had my mother's passed on now, but she was a kindergarten teacher, and both my parents were educators, and so she was very creative. She was a crafter. She quilted. She was just always doing things when she wasn't teaching. In her spare times, that was making things, and so I feel like being exposed to that, I always kind of like to do the same. And so a very creative kid. I used to write plays and perform. I was an only child, so I'd perform my plays.
Hey.
Yeah, yes, then whatever we need to do to keep ourselves busy. So I would like write and perform plays in front of my dolls, maybe my mom and dad, if I could pull them in to watch, but just always making up things. And so one thing that my mom used to do with all of the copy paper that she had left from her job is make these little books out of cardboard and leftover material. And I would just write stories in these books. And, a lot of them would be whatever was going on, a lot with like, having crushes on a certain boy. I would just switch out the name. But I just kind of started writing stories. And then that just kind of continued as I got older, not in a way wherever I thought, I want to be a writer, but that's just kind of what I did and what I liked to do. And so it wasn't until I got to college and I started reading Terry McMillan that I was like, oh, okay, well, somebody's writing these stories. That might be something that I can do. And but still never thought to like take classes or, I'm trying to figure out my major, not thinking that, I could major in creative writing or English and make this a career. I was very practical in what I wanted to do with getting a job eventually. And so it was after I graduated from college, then I just kind of said, well, let me try to see if I can write a book. And it kind of sprang from there. And so then I started a family, got married, and kind of put all that aside. But when I had some downtime, just kind of picked it up again. Got to the point where I was able to finish a book, and I even had an agent for that book, but never ended up selling it. And so that was my first book. And then I wrote another book, and those are somewhere on some old Mac computers that I don't have batteries for anymore. But then I said, well, I really want to get more serious about this writing. I want to learn craft and just get feedback. And so that's when I enrolled in my program at USC. And that's where this story started. It was the first 100 pages of Black Kettle Women was my thesis at USC.
Okay, so the first 100 pages, how long did it take you from like when you started that thesis to us being able to, well, not so much us seeing it because we know it takes a while, but from the time you started writing to the time you finished?
Yes, it was, so that was, I graduated from that program in 2011. So that was a really long time ago. And then it took maybe another year or so after that. I think I started it in 2010 sometime, got the thesis done in 2011 when I graduated, and then worked on it another year and a half, and started sending it out and trying to find an agent, and never really connected with someone, not even the agent that I had the first time. It was a little bit of a different type of a book. And so I think just her expectations of how she thought of me as a writer was a little bit different. So we didn't really connect on this book, but I really love this story. And so I was getting feedback that some people were interested in, but they just had some hesitations about it. You know, think this publication market changes, tastes change, whatever's changes. And so, you know, I think it's all about timing, finding the right time for this book to be received. And so luckily I just kept going back to it and was able to find, well, in 2020, there was an open call for unagented fiction by Black writers by my publisher, Great In-House Books. And I had kind of moved on. I had started working on something totally different, but I had this book. I pitched it. I sent in an abstract for that, and so I had an editor that it spoke to her, and so she reached out and asked for the entire manuscript, and I sent it, and it was not until April 2021 that we signed a contract. She helped me find my agent. So I kind of did it backwards. I got the publisher first and then the agent, and we started revising, and it took about a year to revise, and then just waiting for it to be published. So yeah.
Right. And thank you so much for sharing just that backstory, because a lot of times people don't know, you know, what that whole thing is like. And, you know, like I said, I appreciate your tenacity and that you didn't give up, because it is a powerful story. And you made a point that timing is everything, because you know, tell us a little bit about the story, and then that will kind of lead into why timing is everything in terms of putting something out. So what is Black Candle Women about, for those who haven't had a chance to read it yet?
So Black Candle Women tells the story of the Montrose family, 4 generations of women that all live in the same house, mostly isolated from the rest of the world. And that's because they are trying to protect themselves from a deadly curse that kills anyone with whom they fall in love. And so this is a secret that they've kept, the other women in the family have kept hidden from the youngest Montrose woman, Nickie. And so they're forced to grapple with this curse when Nickie brings home a love interest for the first time. And in the book, we also go back to 1950s New Orleans, where we learn about the curse's origin put into place by a voodoo sorceress. So that is Black Candle Woman.
Yes, and the reason why I said timing is everything, because we are now in a space where people are starting to tell more of the mystical, magical, you know, types of stories, you know, wherein I can think maybe 10, 20 years ago, you know, it's a lot of, you know, like you mentioned, Terry McMillan, you know, certain types of books were popular, a lot of romance, a lot of, you know, things of that genre or nature. You saw a lot more things like that. But I can say, just even in my reading, starting to see more mysteries, starting to see more things that might have a science fiction bend to them, talking more about different types of, you know, spiritual beliefs or practices and things like that. So it definitely is a timing. So you were ahead of your time when you wrote it.
That's a good way to look at it, Marcy.
Yes, you were ahead of your time. So, you know, I love the book, as I was telling you that before we came on, and just there's so many things that, you know, we'll talk about some of the things that really resonated with me, but there's something in your own life that kind of led you in this particular path of talking about stories and things that families hold on to, or, you know, to document certain things within a family. Tell us a little bit about that, and why New Orleans, because there is a part of the book that takes place in New Orleans.
Yes. So my family is from New Orleans. My maiden name is Diane Hebert, Hebert. And I got teased a lot Herbert, Hebert. I got called everything. But every summer, we'd go to New Orleans by train because my mom didn't fly, and we'd stay with my uncle, and everybody knew my last name. So I loved being there because I felt at home. Like, these are my people. This is where I'm from, even though it was a lot different than where I grew up in Northern California. And so I just have such nostalgia for those times and that place that I wanted to write about it. There's a train. The train also makes it.
Yeah, the train.
Yeah, we see the train in the book as well. And I think about my uncle's houses where he lived, and we always very close to the neighbors, and he had a lot of lady friends, and so the lady friends would have kids about my age, and so so that's why I really wanted to write about New Orleans. And yes, there's a spell book in Black Candle Women that we learn has been passed down from generations, and not just spells, ingredients and instructions for spells and rituals, but also like recipes and random things like a bill from the water company or something, just things that you find in between the pages, notes that people have written on the pages that gives you clues into their lives back when they were younger. And so that idea came because I came across a cookbook or not really a cookbook, a binder that my mom had with recipes, but it also had like old greeting cards. It had some things that she had written down. It had a bill, and it kind of gave me some clues into her life, which was really, I just loved looking at it and looking through it and kind of getting a little bit of understanding about her when she was younger.
Right. I just found that really powerful to use that as a backdrop, because how many of us, have a grandmother or a great aunt or somebody who had their box of recipes or whatever, or their little notebook where they were writing things down to keep track of that. And so often we lose sight of those things. They get lost, or, God forbid, when somebody passes away, someone may not see the value in it. Actually, my best friend who I see is in the room. We've talked about that before, how, folks don't oftentimes see the value in holding on to certain things, and how wonderful it is that you were able to get that from your mom, that it also inspired you in writing the story. And
yeah, I was going to say my mom was definitely a documentarian, and I find myself doing those same things. She had all kinds of like little notebooks that she would write down prayers and just some recipes and just random things, family trees, little notes about relatives that I'd never met before, knowing that I would find these one day and then have some understanding about my family. Today, I feel like it's a little bit easier. It's a little different because I can, you can go on, for those of us on social media or who use our phone for pictures, I can search, what restaurant did I go to when I was, visiting here, and I can go on my phone and look it up. And I have this documented history through pictures that I can pull up. And, but what's kind of missing there are those thoughts and things that people write down. So
you can't hold it in your hand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you already mentioned, and I talked to you about this initially before we came on live, about the fact that Black Candle Women has 4 generations at one point of women living in the same household. And I'm like, wow, just to think of the whole idea. And I mean, and for many generations of family, that was kind of how people did things, because they had to, for affordability or whatever the case may be, or to help with the child rearing or things of that nature. But I found it powerful because in this book, it's a modern day story. And we have these 4 generations of women living in the household. But if you read the book, you understand why. But so how was it for you? Is that something you've experienced in your own family, or how important was it for you to have all these women in the same space?
Yes. So when I was younger, I feel like this is kind of this scenario that I envied. Because it was just me, my mom, and my dad. So like holidays are very quiet. It's just a lot of attention on me, which, I'm not going to complain about at all. I had a lovely childhood. But I always wanted siblings. I wanted cousins. I wanted the big family gatherings. And so I think writing has always been a way for me to like create those experiences that I didn't have. And I think that was even, older now, that was me doing a little bit of that. But I have 4 daughters now, and now not as much now, but when they were younger, we did. And with my husband's family, my husband is one of 4 siblings. We did have those experiences, or I had those experiences, maybe not all living in the same house generations, but with 4 daughters and me and my husband and pets, in our little house in Long Beach. Even just that, 2 generations, that is a lot to deal with. So I thought it would be fun to play around with multiple generations living together and some of those challenges.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you have to read the book to figure out why they're all together, because there is a reason. I mean, it definitely serves a purpose that is critical to the story. But we start with Augusta, is it Nan Augusta or something like that? How do you pronounce?
Her name is Augusta, but they since she's a Nana, they call her Nan Augusta. So, yes.
So the story, she's a central part of the story. Of course, because it starts with her in New Orleans, and she is the matriarch of the family.
Yes.
And for me, it was just real interesting to see her part of the story because, well, I don't want to give away too much, but she's a central part of the story. But a lot of what we're hearing from her is told based upon things that happened in the earlier part of her life. Her story was really interesting because she is the one that kind of first experienced this curse. And, we already talked about that, so it's not giving anything away. She was the one that this initially happened to, and then it played out in the other parts of the family. And in her part of the story, of course, is when you go back in time. So was there a lot of research or anything that you had to do to kind of flesh out her character, since she does come in at a different point in time?
Yes, I did do some research, reading, even just thinking about articles that were published back in the 1950s in New Orleans, looking at pictures of the French Quarter and maps of the French Quarter back then, to get an understanding of what, how were the streets paved and what kind of businesses would a person find in the French Quarter at that time. In addition to research about the spells and the tinctures and the powders and the blessing oils and all of the implements that these women use. So researching on the voodoo hoodoo parts, and also just researching on New Orleans in the 1950s as well.
So for those who don't know, what is the difference between voodoo and hoodoo? Because some people don't know what that is.
Well, yes. When it comes to New Orleans voodoo, that is really in kind of just the most basic way, thinking about the spirituality and the religion. There are what are known as Loa, or Loa, which are the spiritual beings in voodoos, and they are thought of similar to like Catholic saints. And so you would go to a particular Loa for whose specialty aligns with what you need. And so voodoo is really going to the Loa and asking them to intercede on your behalf. Whereas hoodoo are the tricks and the spells that a person would perform in order to make something happen. So they go together. One again is a spiritual aspect. One are the tools or the implements that you would use to make magic happen. And so there's overlap. In this story, we have sisters, and there's one who really depends on the spiritual part of voodoo. She leans more on voodoo. And there's another sister who she kind of feels that she doesn't want to wait for
make some things happen.
Yeah, she's got to make things happen herself, and so she's more of a follower of hoodoo. But they learned these practices from their grandmother Augusta, who always believed that you keep the two together.
And grandmother is the one who we see in the 50s and kind of starts this whole ball rolling. But I love the fact that you explained that, because we hear a lot of things about hoodoo, voodoo, whatever the case may be, and we don't always have an understanding. What I also find interesting in that is that in New Orleans, we know that a lot of people who are in New Orleans grow up Catholic. Yeah. And the whole parallel between, having different, whether it's, doing a rosary or just different things or certain, the word's not coming to me, but certain, not so much spells, but maybe it's, the way that you get up and do your different rituals. That's the word I was
Rituals,
thinking.
yes.
Rituals and things like that.
Yeah, so voodoo has roots in the Caribbean, in Haiti, and in Africa. And the reason why we see alignment with Catholicism is because enslaved persons were not allowed to practice their religious beliefs and their rituals and their practices that they brought over from wherever they were brought in from. And so they kind of use Catholicism, overlaying it with their own religion to hide their own practices. And so that's why you do see aligning some of the voodoo spirits with Catholic saints. There's some overlap there.
And also, I'm going to move on in a second, but it also does make me think about the fact that now there are more people in the Black community who are realizing that we have, a lot of the things that, how can I put it? You can be a Christian, but there are things that are a part of our heritage or part of where we come from that we also, tap into, even in, whether it's, shouting in a certain way or dancing in a certain way, there is overlap, and that we do find a way of melding the different traditions.
Yes, and I think voodoo gets a bad rap because a lot of what we perceive about it are practices that people might think are dark or that go against Christianity, a lot of what we see in movies and on television. But the whole idea behind those spiritual practices are really to support people, to help people, and to help heal people. And people were not necessarily using hoodoo to, bring up dark forces and to put hexes on people. Right. That's not really what the heart of voodoo is. People can use it in that way, in damaging ways, like we see it happen in the book. But that's really not what is at the heart. What I learned, and I was had a lot of fun researching this, but that's really what I found in my research.
Right. The whole thing, like, I remember years ago, there was somebody put roots on me or whatever.
Right.
But it's not just that. And I think it's important. The reason why I wanted to spend a little time there, because it is important just to point that out, that, there are healing mechanisms, and, just the whole thing, especially now that a lot of people are starting to get more into natural ways of living, using certain herbs or certain flowers and things like that can help for healing purposes. Exactly. And really, these women in this book were focused on healing.
That's exactly it. And so, yes, I'm glad that seemed to have come through for you.
Yes, it definitely was. And like you said, having different ways of doing it. Now, of course, we have, we already talked about Augusta. One of the other key characters, it's Victoria, because actually a lot of it seems like it kind of centers around her, because even though she is the granddaughter, she is the one that's kind of has really taken on the mantle of being this healer, and how she's working throughout the family, but there are a lot of sacrifices that she's making.
Yes. So Victoria is a marriage and family therapist, and she operates her business out of her home. She is the homeowner. She's the mother of the teenager who brings home a love interest. Her sister works for her, and she takes care of her grandmother. And so she feels a lot of the burden of making sure that the family's needs are met and that her business is successful. But she also, I think, feels that she has the most to lose, especially with the secret coming out, which I think she knows it's going to have to come out at some point. She's going to have to talk to her daughter about this. But she's really done a lot to control her environment. And that's why they've lived the way that they have for so long, is because Victoria is really at the helm. And so I definitely wanted to explore her life and dig in a little bit and see what happens when things are upended.
Right. And, and just thinking about that, I know in this book, we are talking about literal curses, because of the things that are happening, but it also puts me in the mind of, we hear of like generational curses, that it may not be a curse, but it could be something that just tends to happen within families and goes from generation to generation to generation. So in this story, we're kind of seeing a little bit of both.
You are so good, man. That's just another theme that I definitely wanted to explore. So yes, there is the actual curse, and but I did want to look at metaphorically the generational curses that we sometimes hear families speak of, just these patterns that families might have, these cycles, and where people find difficulty changing their narratives if these bad things seem to happen, or these consequences seem to be overwhelming for them with each generation. So that was definitely something that I wanted to explore. And I wanted, for people to think about the way that we battle against generational curses and perceive them, and know that these are things that we can break, and we don't have to do things the same way that our ancestors did, that our parents did. We can live different lives in our families.
Oh yes, we have someone. I don't know if you read the book or not, but can you speak a little bit about how the children came about with these women without giving too much away? I think we can.
Yes. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Can you speak a little bit about how the children came about with these women without giving too much away?
So, Yeah, it's we get little clues about how the women in this family grew up. So we've talked about the matriarch, Augusta. Later we hear about her first child, her only child, and how she was raised, and what her beliefs are. And really, you have these women who range in their beliefs in the curse. So we have people who in the family who don't really believe in the curse, and that has an impact on how they believe. How they behave, and then people on the other extreme in the family who have experienced issues with the curse. They've had loss themselves, and so they are steadfast in their belief, and that dictates how they behave. And so we kind of see that pattern with each of the women. Nickie, we see as a teenager, and a little glimpse into her childhood, but really as a teenager in how she grew up not knowing anything. But we do explore a little bit about the two sisters, with how they first learned about the curse, how they took it when they were teenagers themselves, how they came to their beliefs by what they experienced. I feel like I'm talking kind of vaguely because I don't want to give things away.
Right.
But there is context for how we understand their behavior, and it really stems back to how deeply they believe in this curse, and whether death of a loved one can, if they believe it can happen to them.
Right. And I think, well, the women did have relationships. It's just a matter of how far did those relationships go. Maybe, right. So yes, there were, men in their lives at different points in time, but, and you've already said it up front, so it's not giving anything away. Just the fact that they can have a man in their life, but do you fall in love with the man? Because if you're in love with him, then bad things can happen. So.
Yeah, and what are they willing to risk?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that does bring up, makes me think about Willow, because they are the two sisters. Victoria and Willow are the sisters. And they did take different stances, because Victoria's like, no, I don't want these things to happen. So, I'm not going to, I'm going to not pursue certain types of relationships because I don't want this to happen. Where Willow has a different stance. I really liked Willow in the story.
I like Willow too. She was a lot of fun to write.
She was fun. So talk a little bit about how she differed from her sister.
Yeah. So Willow is also the one who felt that she's more the practitioner of hoodoo, and so her mentality is that she can control things a little bit more because of her practices. And while she probably didn't let herself cross the line, she loves men, and she's a very a person who loves. She was a sensual woman, and she wanted to express herself. She wanted to have sexual relationships with people, and she let herself take those risks. She just said, I'm not going to let myself fall in love, and so she would go after people that she believed she could not fall in love with. So that was kind of her strategy for dealing with the curse. But she wasn't going to deny herself any passion or anything that she felt that she needed. So, which is very different than Victoria.
As I was reading, the other thing just really makes me think about how two children or multiple children can grow up in the same environment and have two totally different takes on life.
Yes.
And sometimes maybe the parent or, person that raised them, in this case their grandmother was raising them, might wonder like, wait a minute, why aren't you all doing what I said, because this is how you were raised. But understanding that each person has their own mind, and that they have freedom of choice.
Yes, and I see that with 4 daughters, and they could not be more different, and they're all very different from me. Not one of them is really, I think, a lot like me, where I feel like I'm a lot like my mom. So yeah, those family dynamics, I think, are just really interesting, and the whole patterns of nature versus nurture. I think I wanted to explore that a little bit as well.
That does show up as well. Now, before I get to the baby who kind of sparked all of this, I do want to backtrack and talk a little bit about Mama Madeline.
Yes.
Because she isn't there at the beginning of the story, but she comes in a little later. She is the mother of Victoria and Willow, and she has her own unique story.
She does. I get questions about Madeline a lot because people usually like Madeline. She's kind of the family member who will tell it like it is. She, she's not very concerned about the curse herself, but she's been estranged from the family because she's had some challenges herself with substance use, with hurting the family in her own way, but she is looking for redemption and returns to the family. But she is not a main point of view character. So the other women in the family are all point of view characters. But I really wanted somebody else to give kind of a perspective from the outside of the family. And that's kind of what I wanted Madeline to do. And she's kind of a little comic relief too, because she always has something smart and funny to say.
Right. She definitely does. And what I liked about bringing her into the story, also, it shows space for, forgiveness, redemption, all those sorts of things. Because a lot of times when you have someone in a family that's been estranged, or, maybe didn't raise the children, or whatever the reason may be that they're estranged, a lot of times it's hard for them to, find their way back into the family, or to be accepted, or to be trusted, and, all these different things, forgiven. So I do like the fact that you bringing her into the story opens space for that in places where maybe certain characters might be very rigid.
Yes. Yeah, we do have members of the family, and this happens. I see it in my own family. You have certain people in the family who are more open to forgiving and moving on, but maybe they weren't hurt in the same way, or just their tendency is to be a little bit less willing to move forward or forgive.
Now, baby girl. Nickie, I really liked her because she, she's the youngest in the family. She is the daughter of Victoria, and, she's the one that kind of sets things ablaze when she finds this boy that she likes and brings him to the house.
Yes. So I just wanted to think about, that first love, when the first time that you are really into somebody, you want to tell your family about them. You think, I remember like my first boyfriend, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to marry this person and we're going to live together forever and have children. And, just, I couldn't imagine that we could ever, like somebody else, and that it would end. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about for Nickie, is she's been so isolated because of the way that her mother has kind of tailored her youth to keep her away from others. And then when she finally connects with somebody, she falls hard. And so definitely isn't going to let her mom or anything, a curse or anything, get in the way of her experiencing that first love. And so that's what I really wanted to look at with Nickie and her falling for Felix.
Right. And the thing of it is that initially she doesn't even know that there is a curse. So
Right. But although her mom kind of jumps in there and tries to not let the two of, tries to get in the way of the relationship, but Nickie doesn't understand why. She just
right.
thinks that, oh, my mom is controlling and she just
Mhm.
doesn't want me to be happy. All, those things that might occur when you don't really understand where somebody's coming from.
Right. Yeah, she's just being a typical overprotective mother.
Yeah.
Not realizing there's more to it. But then, of course, in all of this, because as we find out, of course, Victoria everybody's got secrets, is what I'm getting to.
Mhm.
From Augusta all the way down, because even at a certain point, Nickie has her secrets.
She does.
It's like everybody has secrets.
Yes.
And, a lot of times we hear in stories about families is that there are things as close as people might be in some ways, and other ways they hide things from one another.
Yeah, I think when family members oftentimes have secrets from one another, and especially if they've been holding on to them for a long time, there's shame connected to it. They are fearful of what the most beloved people in their lives will think about them. And so they keep these secrets in, and the longer they stay hidden, then the bigger the secret gets, because not only have I kept this initial secret, but I've kept it for years and years and years, or I've let you believe one thing all this time. And so how embarrassing or shameful would it be if you found out the truth about, me, and I'm your grandmother, or I'm your mom, or I'm your daughter. So I think those are some of the reasons why the women in these family kept their secrets for so long.
Mm-hmm. Now, how challenging was it for you, or was it challenging for you to write the story with having women in the same family from all these different perspectives and generations, so to speak? How was that challenging for you to have these different voices?
Once I really fleshed out and understood each of the women, and kind of embodied them and felt like I knew them so well, that made it a lot easier, because I could think, well, what would Willow do in the situation?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can understand how Victoria's thought pattern is, or why she would do something. And so that once I got to that point, it was a lot easier. What was hard was, I spent about a year in revisions with my editor. So throwing in new story components, changing, working on the pacing, changing some elements. And as I kind of mentioned, we get 4 different point of view perspectives. And so the hard part was, if changing something in one person's chapter, it had kind of not just a domino effect, but also an effect in the opposite direction, just, changing things around and maneuvering things and trying to make sure that we had a nice pattern with the chapters. That's what made it a little bit difficult during the revision. So, yeah.
I knew he was probably going to, or she was going to show up at some point. Yeah. Are you still talking to my mommy? But that is one of the things that I guess we didn't mention that earlier on, that each chapter in the book is basically telling the story from a different character's point of view, but they are layered together. So it kind of like where one leaves off, the other picks up. So it's not like there are there's not like there are gaps in the story, because you can kind of see what's happening. And then, of course, with Augusta being the matriarch, there are times when she goes back, in her and her thoughts of, things that happened to her, earlier on. So it's really a wonderful story. I suggest that people pick it up and take a look at it and read it and, devour it. It is available on audio as well, correct?
Yes, and the narrator is Bonnie Turpin. So I know there are a lot of Bonnie Turpin fans. She's an excellent audiobook narrator.
Yes. I definitely know her. I read, but now that you say that, I might want to go back and listen because it'd be interesting to see if she voices each person differently or. Mm-hmm. Oh wow, yeah, she's really good. It's Bonnie. I want to say it's Bahni.
Yep.
Turpin, Turpin.
Yes.
She does a lot. I'll drop that in the comment, but she does a lot of the audio books that feature Black women writers, and she's really good at what she does. So yeah, so if you like audio, I would definitely suggest that as well. Now, one of the things that I'm excited about for you is the fact that your book has been picked up for a film adaptation, correct?
Yes, television. So it was the March pick for Read with Jenna Today Show, and so she, similar to Reese Witherspoon with Hello Sunshine. So Jenna Bush Hager has created a production company herself, mm-hmm. and she's adapting some of her other content, but some of her book selections, her book picks. And so she is going to be, her production company is going to be adapting Black Candle Women. And so I think it was announced a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. We have a showrunner, and we are just moving things along. So I'm kind of waiting to see what's happening there.
Yes, I know it takes time.
Yes, but it's exciting.
That really is, especially for your first published novel. I'm not going to say your first novel, your first published novel. That's pretty exciting. But the story is compelling, and I can see that, how it would, really be good, to put it on the screen as well, just to see, as long as they don't change too much, because I know sometimes they put things on the screen and it doesn't look like the same story, but as long as they don't change too much, that would be really great. Oh, we do have a comment, and this is, thank you for asking this question, I should say. The cover is gorgeous as it is. It really is. Did you have any input on that? Thanks.
I would love to say that, I had all this input and it was, great ideas, but no, I got an email and I saw that it was the first draft of my cover, and I opened it and I was just blown away. It's by an artist named Bokiba, and mm-hmm. she is in the UK, and I loved it. And so there are just some very small suggestions that I provided, some things to add connected to the book. Mm-hmm. But yes, she did a phenomenal job.
Right. So one of the things here is a Black candle, and I do want to ask the title, Black Candle Women.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the title was not something. This was not the original title, and so we threw out so many different suggestions, and the publisher, kind of knowing, what makes a good title. I had some ideas. I think like the family Montrose might have been one of them, but they're like, no, don't put the name because nobody knows who that is. And I'm like, okay. But we just worked through and just really wanted to have some words that were relevant to this family. Mm-hmm. And so Black women, a family of Black women, the candles, illuminating secrets that had been in the dark for so long. So yeah, that's how we came up with Black Candle Women.
Okay, and it's befitting, and there are, well, this won't give anything. There are actually some black candles in the book as well. So yes, so that's exciting to see that, and as she mentioned, that is a very beautiful cover because if you're in the bookstore, and you see that, that's going to draw you just because the cover is so beautiful, to want to get into the story, which is just a spectacular story as well. Now, another thing in the book, you talk a lot about music and you actually created a playlist.
I did. Just because there's a lot, yeah, there's references to some music, a lot of music, I think from the 80s, I think, or was referenced in there. And so I put together a playlist. Some of the songs remind me of certain characters. Some of the songs that are ones that I listened to while I was writing. And so that's available in the book.
Yes, and actually, you won't really be able to pull it from the screen, but I did drop it in the comments. So if you're in the comments, you can pull it from the comments as well. It is hosted on Spotify. So, and there's some good stuff in there because one of the things I mentioned to Diane was she has a song from Prince, "Another Lover Hole in Your Head." But some people might not be familiar with that song.
No, it's from so everybody knows Purple Rain, but he had another movie, Under the Cherry Moon, which I love it. I love that movie. I mean, it's different, and but if you're like a big Prince fan, then you watched it, maybe several times. And so this is Another Lover Hole in Your Head is a song from that soundtrack, and I love that song.
Yes, because as soon as I saw it on the playlist, I was like, okay. All right, somebody, hey, got a comment for you. Yes. Purple Hearts, absolutely. There's other good ones on there, but that really stood out to me. For those who may not be the Prince fans or stands like that, the popular song that a lot of people knew from that movie was "Kiss." So yes, that's the one. So yeah, yes, fabulous movie. Yes, it's in black and white. It's great. Yes, we can go on and on about that. Even your book cover has some purple in it. So I don't know if that was intentional.
Maybe so. Maybe she did read the book before, so who knows?
Yes. So that's just exciting. So everybody, in addition to checking out the book, please go and listen to that playlist. Get a little Prince and a little DeBarge and just some of the other great artists that were an inspiration for Diane as she was writing. So, is there something that you're working on now, or are you taking a break, or what's happening in terms of things you may have coming out?
Well, I kind of took a big break because I finished writing the book and all the revisions about 9-10 months ago. And so I've started on something new, but haven't made a lot of progress just because I am still connected to those Montrose women. So I have to kind of learn my new characters and get into their heads. But I have started on something, not really sure what it is yet, but it has some, I don't want to say similar themes, but we do go back in time a little bit. There's some historical context of my new project. And so, yeah, that's, I'm a professor and I get summers off. So that's what I plan on working on over the summer months.
Now I have to ask this question. How old are those daughters of yours?
Oh my gosh. Okay. My oldest daughter, I had her young. I mean, I need to just embrace my age. So I'm fine with that.
I didn't ask how old you are. I asked how old the girls are.
I know. My oldest daughter is 30.
Okay.
So, and then my youngest is 20. And
okay.
The other two are 29 and 27.
Okay. Only reason why I asked that because I'm trying to figure out how are you raising 4 girls and writing books like this, but they're probably on their own or close to being on their own at this point. So,
yes. Although when I started the book, they were they were here. I think one was in college already.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because yeah, that's something, just to be able to be a wife, a mom, have a full-time job, and still find time to write, beautifully written stories. That's just something that can be inspiring, to someone to understand that, we all have challenges or other, obligations that we may have, but if something is really in your heart, in your spirit, you need to do this thing, that you can find ways and, to get things done.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now it's less the kids, more social media and TV. So I have to stay off of, limit those things so I can focus on writing and reading.
That is something, because I will admit I am bad with getting on my phone and playing games. Yeah. Next thing I look up, I've been on here an hour and a half. Like, right. I could have been doing something, productive. So that is a thing. So, well, Diane, I really do thank you for being here. We've been waiting to do this for a while, so I'm excited that we're finally having the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation. All right, and is that Nania? Now I'm looking at it. Is that Nania? that just clicked. Picking up Black Candle Women tomorrow. Please do. Please do. Because it's a great story, and share it with others. If you have, people in your life who like to read stories about, powerful Black women who are dealing with challenges, as we all are. There we go. Like, enough is enough. Get off of that. Get off of that screen. But yes, for us, she said, yeah. Because I was like, what is Nania? Like, then it dawned on me, it's Nania. Okay.
Funny. I love it.
But yes, it's just great for us to have authors that are writing these stories. It's wonderful that the publishing industry is opening up so we can see different types of stories. It doesn't always have to be the same thing, wash, rinse, repeat. And I can appreciate that. And I'm sure that with this book, as well as things that will come from Diane in the future, that she's going to continue to be ahead of the curve.
Yes. Well, yeah. Yes, exactly. Let's hope that's the case.
And bring us great stories. So thank you. But I would like for you to hold on for just a second as I make the announcement for next week. So just hold on for me for just a moment. Don't hang up yet. All right, everybody. Thank you, Nania, for that laugh, because I'm like, what is that? Because, people make up names and come up with stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, but yeah, it dawned on me near the end. So thank you for that chuckle. I appreciate that. But for next week, I just want to, as form of announcement, just to let you know, we will be talking to Cade Bentley next week about her book, Where Wild Peaches Grow. So look forward to that next week. And actually, now I'm looking at it, my fingernail polish matches her book. Where Wild Peaches Grow will be our book for next week. So come on in and join us for that next week on the 24th. And then I don't have the banner for it yet, but on May the 1st, 2 weeks out, I will be talking to Dr. Bertice Berry about her latest book. You may be familiar with her name. Many moons ago, she had a talk show, and she's done a lot of other great work since then. So I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Bertice Berry here in a couple of weeks. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining. If you had a good time with this conversation, or are interested in the book, or want to read the book, please, or know others who might be interested, please share it out, because we want to support Diane and her work in all the ways that we can. So thank you again for being here this evening, and I so look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.